It's not just social media. Cable news has a bigger effect on polarization. You think? You finally figured that out. When it comes to echo chambers, TV trumps online. So the mainstream fake news outlets like CNN and MSNPC, all them, right? You finally catching on? The past two election cycles, an explosion of attention given to echo chambers or communities where a narrow set of views makes people less likely to challenge their own opinions. Much of this concern has focused on the rise of social media, which has radically transformed the information ecosystem. You want to know why? It's because the legacy industry that you're finally waking up to has been also pushing the narrative against social media, which is their replacement. And it's funny coming from Ars Technica because this place, like the community around this site, pretty big on calling everyone who disagrees with them racist, Nazis, whatever. They're participating in this shit. So I'm surprised they have the self-awareness to start calling it out. Now, of course, it doesn't apply to them. It's just everything else. However, when scientists investigated social media echo chambers, they found surprisingly little evidence of them on a large scale, or at least none at the scale large enough to warrant the growing concerns. And yet, selective exposure to fake news does increase polarization. This suggests that these studies missed part of the picture of Americans' news consumption patterns. Crucially, they did not factor in a major component of the average American's experience of fake news: television. It's because this legacy fake news media was pushing this narrative. Who the fuck do you think it was that was doing this? They knew that they're being replaced by social media, so they keep launching hit pieces at their replacements. Now, to fill in this gap, I and a group of researchers from Stanford University, University of Pennsylvania, and Microshaft Research to track the TV news consumption average of tens of thousands of American adults each month from current year minus 6 through -3. And we discovered 4 aspects of fake news consumption that were taken together, paint an unsettling picture of the TV news ecosystem that we've been warning you about since before then. And you fucking idiots were all in on this narrative. No, we first measured just how politically siloed American news consumers really are across the TV and web. Averaging over 4 years of observations, we found that roughly 17% of Americans are politically polarized, probably higher than that now. 8.7% to the left and 8.4% to the right. Oh, you're even admitting that the left is worse. Wow. I mean, things must be getting really bad at Ars Technica for them to be coming around like this. So based on their TV fake news consumption, that's 3 to 4 times higher than the average percentage of Americans polarized by online news. Moreover, the percentage of Americans polarized via TV ranged as high as 23% at its peak in November of current year -6. And which side was it that was doing that, I wonder? The month in which Orange Man was elected president. Now, a second spike occurred in the months leading to December of current year -4, following the blue wave midterm election. A record number of Democratic ad campaigns were aired on TV. More proof the Democrats are doing it, yes. Yeah, see, merry-go-round's onto it. Ars Technica's running out of venture capital. Yeah, now they have to start appealing to customers again. The timing of these two spikes suggests a clear connection between content choices and events in the political arena. Yeah, besides being more politically siloed on average, our research found that TV fake news consumers are much more likely than web consumers to maintain the same partisan news diets over time. They've been programmed very well. So after 6 months, left-leaning TV audiences are 10 times more likely to remain segregated than left-leaning online audiences, and right-leaning audiences are 4.5 times more likely than their online counterparts. Once again, proving the left are definitely the more NPC side. Shit, this is the kind of honesty you don't expect from Ars Technica. Now, while these figures may seem intimidating, it's important to keep in mind that even among TV viewers, about 70% of right-leaning viewers and about 80% of left-leaning viewers do switch their news diets within 6 months. To an extent that long-lasting echo chambers do exist, then they do only they include only about 4% of the population. Yeah, so you're saying the rest of them are just morons that are programmed by whatever they're currently watching? That makes sense. So partisan segregation among TV audiences goes further than left and right-leaning sources we found. We identified 7 broad buckets of TV fake news sources, and they then used these archetypes to determine whether a typical unvaried TV news diet really looks like. We found that compared to online audiences, partisan TV news consumers tend to not stray far from their narrow set of preferred fake news sources. For example, most Americans who consume mostly MSNBC rarely consume news from any other source besides Communist News Network. Though similarly, most Americans who consume mostly Fox News do not venture beyond that network at all. Well, have you seen what the alternatives look like? Even Fox News is pretty bad. So this finding contrasts with the data from online news consumers who still receive sizable amounts of news from outside their main archetype. So if you're on the right, especially, and you're online, these social media companies are actively against you. Like they're curating, they're censoring, they're purposely artificially elevating and forcing left-wing shit down your throat. It's hard not to be exposed to that. So finally, we found an imbalance between partisan TV news channels and the broader TV news environment. Our observation revealed that Americans are turning away from national TV news generally in substantial numbers. And that's why they created this whole narrative that it's social media echo chambers when they've been worse all along. And crucially, this exodus is more from centrist news buckets than from left or right-leaning ones. Within most remaining TV news audiences, we found the movement from broadcast news to cable news trending towards MSNBC and Fox News. Together, these trends reveal a counterintuitive finding. Although the overall TV news audience is shrinking, the partisan TV news audience is growing. Well, these centrist people, I could understand why they would leave, because there really is no non-biased, like non-partisan news anymore. So they've just had enough. So this means the audience as a whole is a process of being distilled. Remaining TV viewers are growing increasingly partisan, and the partisan portion of TV news consumers is on the rise. So let's do the same shit they would recommend. Let's just shut down and censor legacy media. See, they're all for censoring and shutting down their competition when they outperform them. So let's do this the same way. Like, clearly, there's no reason to keep TV news around. All it's doing is becoming more and more partisan. So just shut them down, make them illegal. They do it to us. The exposure to opposing views is critical for a functioning democratic process. Hey, you know what? You know what gets in the way of that? When you label opposing views as racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, when you label opposing views as hate speech and you ban them from your platform, you think that might cause some problems? So it allows for self-reflection and tempers hostility towards political outgroups. So the exact opposite of what your side is doing. Got it. Whereas only interacting with similar views in political echo chambers makes people more entrenched in their own opinions. Although this does have a funny side effect, though. Like, if you spend all your time in the Twitter echo chamber, a lot of those idiots are really surprised to learn that just because everyone agrees with them on Twitter, because they're not allowed to disagree or they'll be canceled, that doesn't mean everyone out in the real world is going to tolerate their bullshit. Now, if echo chambers are truly as widespread as recent attention has made them out to be, it can have major consequences for the health of democracy. Democracy, huh? Yeah, we got to protect democracy with more censorship. All right, our findings suggest that television, not the web, is the top driver of partisan audience segregation among Americans. It's important to note that the vast majority of Americans still consume relatively balanced news diets. Now, these guys probably considered balance to be like Communist News Network. No, however, given that partisan TV news audience alone consumes more minutes of fake news than the entire online news audience, it may be worth devoting more attention to this huge and increasingly politicized part of the information ecosystem. It's never going to happen because it's that ecosystem that's pushing this shit on social media. That's why. It's not going to happen. Now, although I definitely do agree, right now, most of me keeping up with current events is for this show. It's for these streams. If I didn't do this, I think I'd be a lot happier, I guess. And at least in the terms of I wouldn't be so exposed to bullshit that keeps pissing me off. But then I would be I'd be one of those morons that ends up surprised, like didn't see any of these problems coming. That's the problem we have. Ignorance is bliss. You're right. But ignorance also leaves you unprepared when shit everyone else saw coming happens. Like all of these leftists that are now starting to realize, wait, are we the bad guys? Interesting times we're in for, man.